Hey everybody, welcome to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast here on a Tuesday. Recording this about 5 o'clock on Tuesday. Dan Labbe, Kay Cabot, Ashley Bastock with you. We'll also have Lance Reisland a little bit later to look back on that film from the Steelers game. But let's get to it as we head into Dolphins week, a matchup of 1-5 football teams. The Dolphins coming off a really tough loss against the Chargers. They scored a go-ahead touchdown late. Justin Herbert made some magical plays happen, and they lose on a last-second field goal. Not a last-second field goal, but they lose on a field goal to the Chargers. The Browns, of course, beaten up in Pittsburgh once again. So let's get to it. Let's look at this week ahead. Wide open here on a Tuesday. We can talk about anything, Mary Kay, as we head into this week. What's on your mind?
Oh, there's so much on my mind as we head into this week. I think the first thing is just the whole concept of this Browns offense and what can they do to try to generate some points, to try to generate a passing game, to try to score a touchdown, how to get Dylan Gabriel just rolling somehow, how to get him protected, how to get Jerry Jeudy going. It's just the collective passing game is what is on my mind. Having said that, this could be a get-right game against the horrible Miami Dolphins, but the Browns are really bad too right now. The only thing that I will say about that is the fact that I still think the Browns have a really good defense. So I think they have the edge in this game because of that, but they've got to figure out a way to score some points, and that is the number one thing I'm thinking about heading into this week.
Yeah, that's the thing that gives me pause going into this game, because this Dolphins defense is really bad. The Chargers were having a lot of success in the run game with a running back who was, he's like their third string guy, fourth string guy, recently signed. So they should be able to get the run game going. They should be able to move the ball on this team. But unfortunately, Ashley, it's hard to really think about that stuff because this offense, it doesn't really matter what type of defense they've played. They've played some bad defenses, and they haven't been able to put up points or really move the football consistently. So this should be a game that the Browns can win at home. That's just the one thing that gives me pause here.
It should be, but yeah, right? I mean, we've been talking about this. I think, Dan, I remember maybe week 3, you saying, boy, I think that loss to the Ravens is going to age poorly because of that defense. And it took us a couple weeks to realize how bad the Bengals defense was going to be too. So they have struggled against bad defenses before. And for me, it's almost like you have 2 1-5 teams. That makes it almost more unpredictable because it's like, well, somebody's going to win this game unless there's a tie. Somebody is going to win this game. And it just, I think, given both of their struggles, it's like who is going to best the other one becomes even harder for me to guess. Like, yes, I look at paper and what the Browns have on paper, I should say, and they should win this football game. But that offense just has looked so inept. It's hard to figure out ways in which they could do that. I mean, I think at this stage, it needs to be what happened in the Packers game. You either need the perfect setup by your defense or special teams for a touchdown, or you need a defensive or special teams touchdown to even get enough points to win a football game right now.
Yeah, so just to circle back on that running back thing, Kamani Vidal was a draft pick by the Chargers in 24. He got waived after training camp, was on the practice squad, got promoted, had 98 career rushing yards from 2024 coming into this game. And then he had 124 rushing yards against the Dolphins on Sunday against a makeshift behind a makeshift offensive line with the Chargers. So again, Mary Kay, this should be a week. This should be a get-right week for this offense in a lot of ways. But once again, we'll see. It's just so hard to figure out how they're going to fix this offense. And I do think just the idea of relying on, well, you're playing a really bad defense, that can't be the only solution.
No, but winning cures a lot of what ails you. And even one victory can change the energy and change the vibe. Because if you look ahead, once again, you see a few other winnable games on the roster. And when you're playing teams that are 1-4 and 0-5 and whatever else they have coming up, you start to think maybe, just maybe, we can claw our way back in this thing a little bit. It would take quite a streak, but they are heading into the easier part of their schedule. Now, of course, after this game, they do have to go into New England and face Mike Vrabel's very, very tough, resurgent Patriots team. And that's certainly not going to be easy. But that one aside, there are a few other games when you look at the Ravens, who are in trouble right now, and the Jets and the Raiders. So who knows? On the strength of their defense, if they can get a few points out of this offense somehow, who knows if they can't at least remain relevant or get back to being a little bit relevant again and stave off all the crazy talk that happens when you lose a football game and end up at 1-5.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's week 6. I think it's over. But that said, if you lose to the Dolphins, that just takes us to a whole nother level. Like you can kind of cruise through this season, and you can call it what you want, a reset, a rebuild, whatever, a transition year, and kind of keep the status quo. You're collecting a bunch of draft picks for next year, and turn an eye towards the future. You lose this football game, though, to a Miami team that's a complete mess, whose coach is on the hot seat, who just isn't, like, they're just not that good. I mean, even Tua, he's missing throws. He's calling out teammates after games. Like, they're a mess. Man, it gets ugly, Ashley, if this team loses that game at home to the Miami Dolphins. That's when you start to really wonder, like, and I was thinking about this too. So last year they didn't have a bunch of home games at the end of the season. This year they do. So we didn't see like the empty stadium, and we didn't hear the boos a bunch last year. This year they have a bunch of home games in December. And if they're losing games like this to the Dolphins, if they lose games to the Jets, it gets really ugly at that stadium. And we know the Haslam's approval rating right now is not super high. We know they're trying to sell a stadium here to the fan base. Like, that's when you start talking about big changes coming. So I think this game matters a lot to the future of this football team and to the future of this coach and GM.
Yeah, it does. And I think, too, even just from the perspective of players staying remotely engaged, right? I mean, I think it's already a concern coming off of this most recent loss where Myles Garrett, it seemed like, was more visibly frustrated than ever. Like, when you have star players starting to feel like that, I mentioned I thought Joel Bitonio was frustrated over certain things and just was not his usual self. And that's a guy who's talked after a lot of losses in his career. So I think you do, with every loss now, kind of start to worry about the buy-in. And yeah, it's all that other ancillary stuff and the hot seats and obviously a lot of fodder for sports talk radio and podcasts and whatnot. But I also think it's about the buy-in from the people who are actually out there playing the games. And that, to me, is when stuff like that happens and you lose that. When things really, really, really begin to spiral and snowball.
Okay, so Ashley, what are you thinking about as we head into this week?
I mean, kind of along those lines. I feel like we've touched on this a little bit already, but, obviously I covered the Browns and not the Dolphins. But I feel like the Dolphins are coming into Cleveland, in theory, like in a slightly worse place than the Cleveland Browns, in the sense that there seems to be more outward turmoil. They've already had multiple pressers of guys talking about players-only meetings. We haven't had that. Tua did it after the game again. People are ripping the head coach for wearing his joggers and his, everything about their offense. Like, there's a lot going on with this Miami team that, again, kind of makes me feel like, okay, maybe the Browns do have a little bit of a leg up here. Things aren't that dire here yet. But kind of along the lines of what we were talking about, you wonder, okay, how many more losses before things are getting that dire? And are they close to that point? Like, you kind of start thinking about it, I think, when you see a team that, in this case, I would argue is just slightly worse off maybe right now from a, what's the word I'm looking for? The demeanor, a vibes check standpoint, I guess, right? Is that right, Dan? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I also
Do we think the vibes are worse in Miami than Cleveland? Like, I feel like they are, right? Like, I'm not taking a leap there. Okay.
And I'll say this too. And look, I'm not in the weeds on Miami's roster and their cap situation and their draft future and all of this. Like, I don't know what all of that looks like. And obviously the Browns have this Deshaun Watson contract they're navigating, but Miami is kind of back at this spot where I think, they've obviously already paid Tua, and there's probably folks asking questions about how that's going to play out long term. even though they've given him that extension. I can see a path forward for the Cleveland Browns. Like, however this season plays out the rest of the way, they have, I think, built themselves a path forward. So whether it's this regime doing it, whether things do really go sideways and it's somebody else, that they have the assets to find a young quarterback, or maybe they have one in the building. I don't know. They have the assets to do some rebuilding of that offensive line. They also have some good players on that defensive side. So I do think, Mary Kay, it is much more dire for Miami. And maybe, again, I'm saying this without having done any research on their draft capital, their cap situation, all of that stuff. But, obviously they have the Tyreek Hill injury that they're dealing with too. And who knows if and when he's going to be back. And they really sort of built this thing to contend over the last few years. It didn't happen for them. They did make the playoffs a few times at least. And now they've got to kind of climb their way out of that. And the Browns, even though their window kind of shut too on them, they're just in a better position moving forward to get this thing pointed in the right direction in the next couple seasons, I think, than Miami.
Well, they are. All you have to do is look at this rookie class and the young players on this football team right now to see that the Browns are well positioned to kind of grow up with these guys a little bit and have something to build on. And then you've got the 2 first-round picks next year and a boatload of other picks. And they could end up with even more picks by the time we get to that draft or get closer to that draft. So I definitely think that the Browns are in a much better position. There are some really good football players that are young and up and coming. Mason, Carson, Quinshon, most of them are draft picks from this year, Harold Fannin. So I do think that the future looks bright. It really is just a matter of, I think, of weathering the storm from this year. And it didn't have to be this way, okay? It just didn't have to be this way. They needed to do a better job of making sure that they had a bridge quarterback who could carry them through this season. They needed to do a better job. They thought they had their guy in Kenny, but even that was a little bit of a reach. Okay. I think you needed to have a better, more experienced bridge quarterback. I don't know who that would have been. Because it was a really bad year to need a bridge quarterback, unless you were going to be willing to spend a bunch of money on a Sam Darnold or a Geno Smith or somebody like that. It was going to be really hard. And they didn't have the money to spend on a guy like that. So that's how they ended up with Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco. They needed a bargain basement quarterback room. But I still feel like, wasn't there somebody else? I don't know. Maybe not.
It felt like
maybe
you
guys can.
It felt like there were a lot of teams looking for that bridge quarterback.
Right.
But still, I mean, they kicked the tires on Russ. I don't know if that would have been any better. But, they didn't seem to show a lot of interest in a guy like a Daniel Jones, who's having a nice year now all of a sudden. I do wonder, was there another path they could have taken? But then the other unknown of this is, how would Kenny Pickett have looked if he had won this starting job? Would we be having a different conversation if Kenny had not hurt that hamstring?
I don't know. We don't know. I mean, they thought that they had kind of found, captured lightning in a bottle with him a little bit, that maybe he was going to be one of those guys who just needed the right opportunity to go out there in a very quarterback friendly offense and see if they couldn't kind of pick him up off the mat a little bit, like some of these other guys have been able to do. But they needed something. They needed a better quarterback for this year, because the fan base doesn't need to go through this, and the players don't need to go through this, and the coaching staff doesn't need to go through this. This is horrible. When you look at the other teams that are in this situation, 1-5, the wheels are coming off. They're getting fired. Brian Callahan got fired at 1-5, right? Ugly things happen when you have one victory at this point in the season, or no victories at this point in the season. And you really need to avoid that, because you want to maintain continuity, but it's hard to maintain continuity if you don't go out and show that what you're doing translates to the grass and to the field, and you get some wins. And they needed to get some wins this year, and they should have. And I almost think that there's no excuse for it. I just feel like there's no excuse for it. I think they could have found a better quarterback situation for themselves, and they left themselves short. And it's really unfortunate, because now you've got guys like we had just talked about. Now you've got guys like Myles Garrett, who actually went into this season believing that this football team could be pretty good this year. He really did believe that. And I actually believed and still believe that if they had better quarterback play from the jump, that they would have won at least, let's say at least 3 games by now, at least 3, maybe 4. And if you have 4 victories right now, then you're in the thick of it. So, the season's going down the tubes. If they can get this one and get a couple of more, maybe it changes the energy up a little bit. But right now it's bad. You've got people calling for Kevin Stefanski's head all over the place again. Who needs that? Who needs that kind of a distraction? They got these rookie quarterbacks, and every time they turn around, they're going to see that maybe their head coach is on the hot seat, and that just creates just a lot of consternation on a football team. So I don't like where this is at right now, and I don't feel like it needed to be here.
Yeah, I mean, the defense is good enough for this team to be 3-2 right now. Just based on what they've shown us, based on what they've done, I think that defense has been good enough for this team where they should be 3-2. And I think to a point that someone made on the Hey MK podcast, like, weren't the expectations that this team was going to struggle with that early schedule? Maybe, but things changed when we kind of saw how good this defense could potentially be. And then you actually watch those games, how they play out, and you realize, like, man, if you could get one more score, right? If you could get one more, like, that's really all you needed. And now you're in this position where, I hate to play the schedule game too much with this football team because we just don't know, but, like, there are, Miami, the Jets, and the Raiders are 3 teams coming up and we don't know what sort of state the Ravens are going to be in when they play them, but maybe that's another one, like you mentioned, Mary Kay. But you have at least 3 games against teams that are in a similar spot as you. Could you go 3-2 in this next stretch? Now imagine if you were doing that after starting 3-2. Now you're talking about something. But now you're sort of talking like, hey, go 3-2 and at least make this palatable, over the next few months. It's going to be really difficult. I don't know. Ashley, I think Mary Kay laid that out pretty well with the quarterback situation, the offensive situation. It kind of goes back to how we started. Like, it's just it's soured what has been a really good defensive performance and what should have been some winnable football games.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because, I mean, when this defense is playing well, like, they are that good. This, especially the defensive line, to me, is like such the real deal. They finally have fairly consistent interior pressure. And I think you saw it in the Packers game, especially, and what it can do. And I do think this is the best D-line across the board that we have seen Jim Schwartz have in here. Like, they should be feasting. And what makes it so unfortunate is what Myles Garrett talked about on Sunday. This idea of when you don't have a lead and you're in this attack style defense, you can't play downhill in the same way. You can't take the same kind of chances because you just can't afford it. So yeah, it's not just for me that they are wasting what are already good performances. It's that now I think we're kind of to a point where, because the offense is so bad, it's almost like regressing with what we're seeing, that the defense can't even play at the highest clip that they want to be going at, especially with that front.
All right, Browns-Dolphins coming up Sunday. This is going to be an interesting week. I'm curious you just know, these are the weeks where it's like, man, this is going to be a boring nothing week. And then something crazy happens Wednesday. Somebody says something, something crazy happens. I don't know. You just never know in this league. And again, this one's winnable. We'll all be making our picks on Thursday. I'm curious to see if I'm just curious to see where everybody ends up going when we get to that point on our preview podcast. My dog is losing his mind, so maybe he's telling me he's going to pick the Browns or something. Okay, we're going to take a break. I'm going to let Mary Kay and Ashley go, and then on the other side, Lance is going to join us to talk about what he saw on that Steelers film. Welcome back to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast, and now we welcome on, as we do every Tuesday, Lance Reisland. Okay, we're going to look back at this Steelers film, and then Lance has the draft for us to do a little bit later here in the pod, as well as he always does, comes up with a great question. So, Lance, Browns 23-9 losers. I think we got to start with this offense. It has been the theme since that game ended on Sunday. What is going on with this offense? What is not working? Is there anything working? When you looked back at what the Browns were doing on Sunday, what did you see?
Well, first of all, it starts off with physicality. They're not as physical as they have been in the past. Even those 3 guys interior are playing okay, but they're not knocking people backwards like they did a couple years ago. And I'm not saying age. I'm not saying any of that. I'm not saying they lost a step for some reason. They're just not. Is it unsure? Are they trying to help the tackles? The other thing, there's not a lot of complexity in the run game. It's mostly duo and zone. Where in the past, Kevin has always had a multitude of runs with counters, powers, pin and pulls, with a bunch of different formations. But it starts off with physicality. In the pass game, so the run game is inconsistent. The pass game, everybody wants to blame the quarterback. I will tell you that whoever's at quarterback right now will probably have very similar results. Why? Because pass protection is really poor. And then when the pass protection holds up, the quarterback sometimes misses. And obviously then pass protection holds up, quarterback delivers a good football, and there's a drop. So there's a combination of everything on offense. Everybody has their hand in it. But I would say the offensive line play is the major issue, followed by, obviously lack of skill outside. They really struggle with skill. But that's okay if you catch the ball and you run the ball well. There's a lot of things you can do. So the offense, it's not the quarterback. The quarterback has his hand in it as well. But without pass protection, this is the thing that everybody is talking about. I'm not into developing guys. I want guys who can win out there. But if your thing is development guys, it's going to be really tough with this offensive line to develop guys because the pressure is immense right now, and they're making poor decisions. And they're young guys, and they're going to make poor decisions, especially when their clock is sped up.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. When I went back and watched and when I really kind of thought about it, it's just such a, and we talked about this on the postgame show, it's such a collective failure. It's not just, that's what makes this hard. You can't just point at one thing and say this is the problem. It's like when everything is going right in one area, now Jerry Jeudy drops a pass, or Harold Fannin drops a pass, or somebody doesn't turn their head in time and the ball hits them in the helmet, or you get this great scramble drill and it's a wide open touchdown for Jeudy and Dylan Gabriel misses wide. It's just, if it's not one thing, it's another. And I think that's what makes this so difficult, is that it's not just, okay, change the play caller or change the quarterback or try some new O-line. There doesn't seem to be a quick fix. And I think a lot of people are hoping that maybe this Dolphins defense will be the fix on Sunday. We'll see about that. We'll talk a little more about that on Thursday. But just internally, at least, it's hard to find that quick fix to this thing.
Well, the thing that I've heard that I will disagree with is the Browns are predictable. They're also predictable. Well, for me as a coach, I will say this. Predictability is to say, for me, is we're not executing. And when you're not executing, it looks like you're predictable. The Browns have run this stuff. The plays they're running, everybody else runs. I know there's timing. I know there's all this stuff that those are valid points. But really, predictability comes down to you just can't run the ball. I posted a couple things this week where 5, 6, 7, there's 7 guys blocking and 6 guys are losing or there's 5 guys blocking and 4 guys are losing. So they're just losing up front, which makes it look predictable. This is who they are. This is the offense they run. So it's not about predictability. For me, it's about execution. When Kevin Stefanski is your coach, this is what you're going to run, which I'm not against, but it's not predictable. They're not executing, and that's the bottom line. Now, you're not executing, and you don't have some easy yards guys, and there's a bunch of, like you just said, there's a bunch of things. There's a bunch of Band-Aids going on, a really big leak right now. Once again, though, it's okay. Get back to work and fix it.
So let me ask you about this. And I texted this to you yesterday. So obviously the run game has been a big part of this. And the Steelers, they were doing everything they can to stop that run game. And I do think, to me, second guessing every single play call is like second guessing a baseball lineup, or you can do this stuff all day if you want. But there were a couple instances where I thought the Browns missed opportunities to just see if they could run the football on this team. And I think the first one was coming out of the half. You get a 5-yard run from Judkins, and then they take Judkins off the field and put Dylan Sampson in. And they get that leads to a strip sack. It gets negated by an offside. So now they get a 2nd and 1. They bring Judkins back in. False start brings them back to 2nd and 5. But then again, they don't even try to run the ball again in that situation. And then, of course, there was the 1st and goal. You get the penalty down to the 3-yard line on a pass interference, and they just drop back 3 straight times. Now, if those pass plays work, okay, we play the result a little bit and say, hey, that was brilliant. Nice job. You did something different. But to me, I feel like those were 2 opportunities where, yes, it was a struggle to run the ball. Yes, the Steelers were making it hard. Those are the 2 that stood out to me as like, hey, especially coming out of halftime, let's see if we can lean on these guys a little bit and get something going in this run game here, especially because you got a rookie quarterback making a second start. You got to help the guy out a little bit.
Well, there's 2 things that I agree with. There's 2 things I have an issue with what the play calling was there. First and foremost is if you're going to throw the ball, you have to change the launch points. So everybody talks about Dylan Gabriel's size and height and all that stuff. I'm not a big believer in that, but once again, he's a rookie, so you gotta change the launch points so things become simpler and the pressure's not so immense. The pressure was so immense on him. And maybe he's not the franchise quarterback and all that kind of stuff. I think he's really good, but the idea of dropping him back 3-5-7 didn't make a lot of sense to me. The other thing with the run game is that they're not creating any angles right now in the run game. So if you think about vertical displacement or moving the guy backwards, so I'm going to block you backwards. Well, sometimes Posick is not doing that as well as he did a couple years ago. Batonio is not doing that as well as he was a couple years ago. Teller's still moving people back without question. It's not that they're not blocking, but for a while those guys would destroy people backwards. Well, it's okay, and if you do that every single time, the defensive linemen get used to it, and then they start stepping and getting their hands on. So that's where that creativity for me in the run game comes along. Create some angles with gap scheme where Posick's not blocking the nose guard in front of him. He's going to block left or right. And then Teller or Batonio is going to come down on the nose guard with some angles. And then all of a sudden that nose guard has to think a little bit. Right now in this run game, they're basically saying, we're going to double you and no matter what you do. And I'm just not sure if the Browns are good enough right now just to double everybody every single time. Now, I think they can do it, but they have to mix in some other runs. There's no creativity whatsoever in the run game right now. It's all vertical, duo, let Junkins find a hole, which has been successful. But now you're starting to see what happens when you start, people load the box. And you got to create some opportunities with some angles and some other blocking schemes.
You mentioned a little bit, how do they get Dylan Gabriel kind of going pointed in the right direction here?
Well, the first thing they got to do, obviously it's cliche, but you have to win on first down. I think another thing is you can't throw it 52 times. So you got a third round draft pick and a fifth round draft pick who are your quarterbacks right now, and you're dropping back and throwing it 52 times. That's not conducive for winning. Secondly, you got to change the launch point. And more importantly, change the launch point. First of all, he throws well on the run. Secondly, it minimizes your read as a quarterback. I used to love throwing on the run because when defenses are really good, sometimes it's hard to decipher what coverage they're in. When you sprint out or you throw on the run, you're only reading like a third of the field, which really helps you out with quick throws. If you think about that third down route where he sprinted out and threw the first down to Judy, those type of things, it just kind of creates some easy throws and catches. And right now they're just setting him up in the pocket as if he's a 6'5" gunslinger. He's a guy who can run some zone read. He's a guy who could throw on the run 3-5-7. You could do all those different things with him. I think it would help him out if you just kind of changed it up a little bit. Now, I will say this. I've been there before where you call plays and you're like, that didn't work. And when you can't control the line of scrimmage, you start grabbing for plays. And that's what's happening with the Browns right now. Their offensive line's getting beat up, especially those tackles, so they're reaching. And they're not sure if they can sprint out because can the tackles even hold up in that? And if you chip, then you're not getting enough guys out, so you're not stretching the field horizontally and vertically. There's so many layers, like you said earlier, to the struggles of this. But yeah, for me, I'm going to get the run game going. I'm going to be stubborn about it, and I'm going to make sure that I don't. I'm not going to drop him back 3-5-7 where he's holding it over 2.8 with these defensive guys coming.
So let's move to the defensive side of the ball. Again, it was another day where, the defense was fine. It felt like the Steelers poked a little bit at that run game more than other teams have done, but it's not like they were lighting it up in the run game. Aaron Rodgers really loved that Tyson Campbell, DK Metcalf matchup. Seemed like every time he saw that, he wanted to attack it. Didn't hit it a couple times, then did hit it after that. How did you come away from this defensive performance? And I think the real question people have is, how are the Steelers mitigating Myles Garrett's impact in this game?
Well, the number one thing to do is get rid of the ball. I mean, go back and watch the highlights. Just go back if you want to, because I asked myself the same question. Go back and go on YouTube and just type in Aaron Rodgers completions versus Browns. You will see every ball come out fast. And that's what happens. So what you need to do is you need to press coverage. You need to take things away from the receivers. Now, Campbell, for me, I thought he played great. And now he got beat on the one catch. That was a great catch, great throw. He was there, though. And I'm okay with that because that's part of playing man coverage. He got beat on a sluggo, really good sluggo route, slant and go. Again, really good call. That happens. But for the most part, I thought he competed very well, especially since he played a couple of days earlier. I thought he did a great job. He'll be a really good DB. He's got elite physical tools if Schwartz can get that out of him. So I thought they did really good. But there's the only thing that the Steelers did really well, and Rodgers can do this really well, is get rid of the football out of the shotgun. And if you're getting rid of the ball when you're 5 yards deep, so if you think about a 3-step drop, it gets you to 5 yards deep. That takes about 1.2. So you're trying to throw the ball between 2.4 and 3.2. All these crazy numbers we have as coaches. But the bottom line is he's getting the ball out so fast. If you let Myles Garrett run with no one blocking him, he would get there in about 1.5, 1.6. So it's just that people are getting rid of the football. So you have to take away those easy throws. And how you do that, I don't know. But, the first thing you got to do is you really got to work on A and B gap pressure. There's some things you can do, but that's what the Steelers did. They ran the ball a little bit, but more than anything, he just gets rid of it really fast. That's the answer versus pressure teams.
What did you think of the decision? And I agree with you. I thought considering the circumstances, Tyson Campbell was fine. Look, DK Metcalf is going to beat you sometimes. It happens. But what did you think of the decision for the Browns to match him up so much with DK and kind of leave Denzel? I know there were a couple times when Denzel was on him, but leave Denzel to kind of deal with the other side.
Well, you and I have talked for a couple of years now. I'm all about moving Denzel with the best guy, play D on coverage, which is he goes wherever the best guy is and you play with 10. In Schwartz's defense, you can do that because there's so much man coverage. Now, what I like about it is that I knew they were going to be in man, as I told you last week, when they think that's the only way you can do it because he doesn't know the coverage calls yet. He's been here 48 hours. So the only thing you can do is say, it's like basketball. You got a man. Go play him. I'm okay with him being on because of his size. He's a big guy. He can really run. He's got elite speed. He's a bigger guy. And the only thing that he has advantage on Ward is that he just towers over Ward. But Ward would do a great job against him. But I'm not necessarily against that. Now, the other thing I will say about Schwartz is that's why Miles Harden, he has ultimate, right or wrong, that's how he coaches. And I'm all about having a plan. Sometimes I don't like the plan. I don't like the idea that you don't put Ward, who's top 5 corner in the league, on DK Metcalf when they don't have a lot after him. However, his plan is, I like all my guys, and all my guys can compete. Okay, that's your plan. We don't have to like it, but there's a plan. He's not grab bagging. If you watch a Schwartz defense, he's doing what he believes is best, which is that's why you get paid to coach. So I have no problem with that. So I wasn't against that. I think he's a big kid. He's long. He's really good in press. And that's what he's brought here to do. And that's what excites me a little bit about having him here, because Greg Newsome is really good, but Greg Newsome can be beat in man coverage. If you say anything you want, and people are like, oh, such a down. I disagree. In this scheme, Campbell is an upgrade just because of his length and his ability to play man coverage, which tells you the Browns are going to be in more man, which is a good thing because I think they're going to have to start bringing more than 4.
So I'm also curious about one other thing here, because I think one of the frustrations of this game, when you look at the defensive side, obviously DK made some plays, but they were getting beat by guys who hadn't previously made a bunch of plays. What were the Steelers doing? Darnell Washington, right? I know they're trying to get him more involved, but this was the first week where they really were able to kind of get him in. And of course, they had that big play to start it. Cam Hayward's brother scores a touchdown. They really turned to some guys with Calvin Austin out, and Pat Freiermuth hasn't quite been Pat Freiermuth yet. They really turned to some guys that hadn't made plays. Was there anything they were doing? Was it just a matter of, Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers and he's a genius and he's going to figure this stuff out? What do you think the Steelers were doing in those situations? And Jalen Warren's really good, by the way, too.
Yeah, well, the first thing is a really good play design. Not only on that first play was it a run set, but they had an extra tackle in the game. And that's an alert for a defense. So once again, if you're in man coverage, those short little motions teams run, so they'll be in the bunch and a guy will motion inside, outside, but it's only like 5 yards. What that does is it changes man responsibilities. If you think about the first play of the game, Campbell had Washington. Washington goes inside. He now becomes 2 strong, and Smith became 1 strong. Hickman, who had Smith because he started off as 2 strong. Once Washington went inside, he now has him. So they had to switch guys because of just that little short motion. That all happens really, really quick. And then you have a run action. And Hickman's a really aggressive guy, so he stepped up on it. And to me, that's more, I'm not blaming anyone. It was Hickman's guy, but that communication with having a brand new guy in, whose call was it? Did somebody not make the call? So that's more of just being a new, in my opinion. But that's that. And then, the pass he threw to, like the one down the sideline we said Campbell had, that's backyard football. That's a fade, well covered, go get it. Some of the thing, some of the counter was a scramble drill, keeping plays alive. There's some great stats. If the quarterback holds it over 4 seconds, you're going to win because it's hard to cover past 4 seconds. So once again, I don't think it was defensive breakdowns. This defense has a little bit of they're getting beat up a little bit because they're starting to wear down a little bit because they're trying to play perfect football. I once again, I'm an offense coordinator, and I've had these type of situations. You're getting no help from your offense. The offense knows it too. This is why you get paid the money to be a football coach. This is when it's hard to do when you're in shambles like this. This is when you get this. It's easy to do when you're rolling. This is when you make the good money right here, because this is tough right now.
Right. And again, I think, you look at a team like the Steelers, like they figured that out, missing Calvin Austin, who's been good for them. I know he had the big mistake in the one game, but he's been good for them. And they were able to kind of figure some things out with DK Metcalf and kind of a bunch of guys. Again, it helps when you have a future Hall of Famer standing at that line of scrimmage, figuring things out.
Yeah, and anytime you have, so he's not quite the alpha he was, but he's an alpha mind still, right? He can get and then you have an alpha receiver. It always gives you an out. You can always just take 3 steps and throw it up and have a chance. That always helps, and that's what the Browns don't have right now. They don't have a guy. I think Njoku can be a guy that they just refuse to get him the ball, but I think Njoku's their best matchup. Regardless of who he's covering, he's the best matchup. He's a really good receiver. He goes and gets it. And they don't use him like that, obviously, and he's not a DK type receiver. But that's the disadvantage. You know what it really tells me? How bad are the Jets? Because you thought Aaron Rodgers was washed up with the Jets. He looks fine. He looks.
Well, sometimes, Lance, there's a reason that people get fired.
Well, I will say this, at this point in his career, I said it before to you, I'm not sure Aaron Rodgers comes into camp in the best shape anymore. I think he's medicinally taking care of himself in the offseason, so it takes him a little bit of time to get in shape at this point. So, but he looked great, and that was part of the deal. But none of those breakdowns. This is all on the offense and special teams. The defense will be fine if they get help from those other 2 phases.
Okay, let's do your question of the week here. It's another draft for us.
All right, we're going to do a 4-round draft. You get the first pick. We're going to do a little different. We're going to do your best villain, heel. It could be monster, bad guy, all genres, sports, movies, tunes, TV shows, you name it. It could be anything. Just when you say this name, you go, oh yeah, that's a bad guy, or that's a heel, a guy you root against if it's a sports guy, things like that. So, there's some great ones out there. So you get the first pick, Mr. Labbe.
Okay, so I went with a theme. You sent me the list, and you were like, you can do sports, you can do... I wasn't going to do real life. I think that's just depressing, like the people you would pick in real life. So I'm not going down that road. I'm sticking to entertainment, and I'm actually just sticking to TV shows. I'm sticking to 4. I don't know if this is my top 4 TV shows. It's close to my top 4 TV shows of all time. It's certainly like 4 in my top 7 TV shows. So I picked the villain from my favorite TV shows. All right. So my first one. This is my 1A TV show. This is the one that I'm sure I'm going to be rewatching it soon because I rewatch it all the time. I am taking Gus Fring from Breaking Bad. I think he is one of the greatest TV villains of all time. The whole the chicken business front. He is unflappable. He is calm. He builds an empire. He slow plays his a lot of spoilers here. He slow plays his revenge. Against I forget the guy's name. Like Gus Fring. He's my first pick. So I went with Breaking Bad. And again, I'm going to go through my favorite TV shows and pick the evil character from each one.
I also have a somewhat of a kind of theme in terms of I'm picking for myself and my family and things of that nature, aging myself a little bit. My first villain is more of a heel. He's not really a villain. He's not but he's a guy he love to hate. I'm going with Biff Tannen from Back to the Future.
Good. That's a good one.
So, there's not a guy you hate, when he turned, when it went back to the feud and he turns into the roles switch, it's fantastic. So Biff is my number 1 pick, just because he's the one. I remember growing up, I'm like, God, I hate that guy. Biff Tannen. That's number 1. Solid.
That's a very good one. Okay. So now I move on to, we're not doing we're going back and forth, right?
Back and forth.
Okay. So now I move on to another show that is one of my all-time favorites. Maybe number 2, number 3, I don't know. The Wire. Now, how do you pick a bad guy from The Wire? Because this is the point of the show. Are there bad guys? Isn't everyone a bad guy? All of that stuff. But I'm going with the guy who over the last, I don't remember if he was in season 3. I think he was, but I can't. It's been a little while since I've watched. but I'm going with the guy at the end who was the kingpin, Marlo Stanfield.
Wow.
A lot like Gus Fring. A lot like Gus Fring. Very calm, very measured, but very just.
I think it's a great. Measured is a great term for your first two picks. Very, very methodical, measured. They're not out of control. They're not psychotic. They're not,
Yeah.
All right. This one's going to be probably I like this. I'm not sure many people like this, but growing up, did you think Die Hard was a Christmas movie?
It's too early for this kind of content. But yeah, well, I think it's a Christmas movie.
Well, one of the greatest villains of all time, Hans Gruber. Hans Gruber from Die Hard is a great villain. So I'm going with my second round. I'm going with Hans Gruber.
Yeah, see, if I would have gone action movies, you could come up with some great action movie bad guys. The guys who killed John Wick's dog.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
I actually recently watched the whole John Wick series within the last 2 years. I had seen the first two, but I had never seen 3 and 4. Oh my god,
they're amazing.
So
yeah,
good.
It's a great when he goes into the bathhouse in 1 and just absolutely wreck shop. There's not a better scene at all for sure.
What about? I hope I'm not taking anybody off your list, but this is one I would have considered from an action movie. Is he the chief of police in First Blood, in Rambo First Blood? Is it the police chief?
That's a great villain.
That's chasing him? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the cop car, and this is my town. Oh yeah, that's a great one.
Okay, so now
third rounder.
So now I am going to my go-to show. I always put it on, just sometimes as background noise. If I had to pick my ultimate, it's not like in the prestige TV category of like Breaking Bad and The Wire, but this is my all-time favorite just TV show of any genre. I am going Mr. Burns from The Simpsons.
Oh, that's a solid one.
Bad guy, just on all levels, just a bad human being.
That's a good one. I had some good ones. I didn't have that one. All right, so I'm gonna go to my favorite TV show with my wife, and this, I don't know if you've ever watched The Walking Dead. Are you a Walking Dead fan?
I stopped after like 3 or 4 seasons, but yeah.
All right, so one of the biggest bad guy heels ever, the Governor. The Governor is just a bad human from The Walking Dead. For sure, one of the best. I was gonna go Negan. Negan is easy. I went the Governor because he's even worse to me.
I'm trying to remember. What season was he in? Because that sounds familiar. I think I watched that.
It's
season
3 or 4. It's in there. It's in that.
Yeah,
range.
And I just googled him. I see him. That's a good one. Yeah, that's a really good one.
The Governor's a good one.
Yeah.
All right, last pick.
Okay. I'm gonna admit this is a little bit of a weird one. Okay, but again, I'm sticking with my favorite TV shows here. And this is one that I'm actually currently in the middle of a rewatch. I'm on season 3. I made it through season 2, which is one of the worst seasons of a TV show, of a great TV show ever. I am rewatching Friday Night Lights.
Great show.
Okay, so again, in my top 5, I'm sticking with top 5 TV show villains. Who's the villain in Friday Night Lights? I thought there's not really a bad guy, and then it hit me. My final pick is the crushing anxiety of peaking in high school and never escaping a small Texas town.
Oh, well done. You went like my wife would be proud. That was really like Englishy. That was well done.
Right?
Never like peaking, the people who peak in high school. You never want to be the person. Tell my daughter that all the time. Don't peak in high school. That's not when you want to peak. That was a good one. Wow, that's a tough one to follow. That was that one. All right, so I'm going to go
philosophical, right?
It's got me going here. All right, so I'm going to go with just this is my daughter. This is for my daughter and my wife, but I'm going to go with probably the ultimate guy who you didn't see till later. You knew him. They said his name throughout the 7 movies. Harry Potter. You got to go with Voldemort. Voldemort is a fantastic villain. It wasn't as good, but I got some outstanding honorable mentions. How about you? Give me some of your honorable mentions. I know
because I was so like tunnel vision, laser focused, I don't have a ton of honorable mentions, but my one non-TV one, this will hit home for the folks who grew up as churchgoers. Judas Iscariot, man. What a heel.
Oh, wow. You guys, this is a great, I'm keeping them all in this range. These questions are good. You're way smarter than me. All right. Some of my ones that just childhood stuff. Darth Vader's a great one.
Great. Oh yeah, yep. Yeah. See
Hannibal.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say like if I had really just had it wide open, yeah, Darth Vader would be he's probably a first rounder. Come on.
1992, you got to go with Hannibal Lecter. I was in high school. It was fantastic. Michael Myers, Pennywise. How about if you're a Game of Thrones fan, the Night King is a great villain. You got Lex Luger. I got a great one for you. How about Shooter McGavin?
That's a good one. It's a good one.
You got Lex Luthor. You got I got
yeah,
a great
you
one
can go
too.
through. You go through superhero villains like crazy.
Scar's a great one from Lion King.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's really good.
All right, I got one for you.
Oh,
Did
what
you
about?
ever watch?
Speaking of Disney, I don't know her name, but Little Mermaid. That witch in Little Mermaid.
The octopus. What's her name?
Yeah.
Her name is.
I don't remember her name, but
oh my gosh, I'm having
she was terrifying. I'm gonna look it up here.
Yeah, look it up.
Like, yeah.
All right. Did you ever watch Friday After Next? Those silly dumb movies.
I haven't, and it's one of the ones that I should. Ursula, by the way, that's the name.
Ursula, yeah. Total brain. So
I
Debo
should.
Is one.
I don't know why I haven't watched those. I should.
Debo is a good one for movies. Tony Montana is a great bad guy. Here's a great one for you. Do you know who Johnny Lawrence is?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know if you do, because you'd be smiling if you do. The Karate Kid.
Yes.
Do it for Johnny.
Right.
Do it for Johnny.
But then he has a little bit of a redemption arc in that.
Little bit of redemption.
The show that came out, really good. They did a really good job on that kind of remake.
My sport one was Bill Laimbeer. He's a great heel. That was an easy one.
It's a good one.
Johnny Manziel is a great one at this point in time.
You want another complicated answer? You want another one that's kind of like...
Yeah, give me your deep buff.
This was another show that was like, who are the bad guys? Who are the good guys? Tony Soprano.
Oh, that's a great one.
Bad
you could
guy.
Go. Yeah, you could.
Anti-hero.
Right, you don't know who's who on that one. That's
Walter White. My Breaking Bad theme. Walter White.
How about the Iron Sheik? If you're a wrestling fan, the Iron Sheik is a good one. All right, I'm done. I'll just keep going. I'm done. That was a fun one. That was get a little light here. Browns are going to get it rolling. I'm telling you, there's no other way to do it. You got to get back on track and get it rolling.
Hey, I do want to give a shout out because you mentioned Johnny Lawrence and I mentioned the show Cobra Kai is the show. Yeah. If you haven't watched it, it was really good, especially the first couple seasons. They were a lot of fun. And I know the guy that made it, I don't know if he's from Cleveland. I don't know if I don't know his role. I know he was involved in the creation of the show. He's actually a Browns fan because I see him tweet about the Browns sometimes. So who knows? Maybe he listens. Shout out Cobra Kai. Great job on that show.
Kai.
All right. That'll do it for this edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. If you are not subscribed on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, go get subscribed. Leave us a 5-star review. Say nice things about us. Do the same thing on YouTube. Get subscribed. Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. That's the YouTube channel. If you're not a Football Insider subscriber, it's cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page to get involved with that. You just heard from Lance, from Mary Kay and Ashley. I am Dan. Thanks for listening, everybody.